Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Idle Park Talk Show. It is 71 days since the United States and Israel started their unprovoked attack on the Islamic Republic of Iran, and 32 days since the initial ceasefire was agreed upon between the parties. It is important to point out that though there have been exchange of fire between the United States and Iran, the fragile ceasefire remains in place. Quite a lot has transpired in this region this week, but I would like to take a few minutes to talk about a coalition of 40 countries wanting to help open the Strait of Hormuz, and secondly, Iran's response to the American 14-point peace plan. For the past couple of weeks, France and the United Kingdom have been leading an initiative to open the Strait of Hormuz. This initiative entailed the formation of a coalition of willing parties, about 40 of them in numbers, led by France and the United Kingdom. The initiative also has the participation of Germany, Italy, Canada, Australia, and the United Arab Emirates. The United Arab Emirates is a country that has experienced a brunt of Iranian retaliation since the war started in February 2028. The goals of this coalition is to establish a strictly defensive multinational mission, including mine sweeping and naval protection of commercial vessels, particularly once a ceasefire is in place. So this is a coalition that hopes to go to the straits and to open the waterway by mine sweeping. So destroying mines that have been placed by Iran, and also to protect commercial vessels as they go through in and out of the Strait of Hormuz. That is what the mission is. It is important to point out here that the United States is not involved in these talks, in this meeting with the coalition. So the United States is not going to be part of this coalition. So it is independent from the United States. So they have made it very clear that they are not joining the war that the United States and Israel started. So they are not getting involved in the war. They are also pointing out that they are not joining the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, the blockade which the United States has put in place against Iran. So this coalition does not want anything to do with that as well. Their mission it will start as soon as there's a full ceasefire, or when the conflict kind of subsides, or when the parties reach a peace deal. Clearly, France and Britain and the other countries who form part of this coalition do not intend to get involved. We remember that Donald Trump has on several occasions called on other countries to either join the initial attack, which countries like France, Britain, Germany, and Italy, and Spain clearly indicated that they were not getting involved. Some of these countries also prohibited the United States from using either their airspace or their land space. So U.S. military bases in those countries are or have not been used in the United States attack on Iran. So this coalition has very clear purpose to help open the Strait of Hormuz through mine sweeping, and also to protect commercial vessels as they go through the strait. Again, the United States is not part of this coalition, which makes sense because, again, the United States cannot be part of a coalition. The United States is the belligerent, so one of the parties fighting the war, so it would not make sense to have the United States be part of this coalition. They made it very clear they are not intending to join the United States in their fight against Iran. They are not intending to join the United States blockade. And of course, their mission is conditioned on, first of all, ensuring that there is a ceasefire, or that when the conflict really subsides, or if both parties reach a peace deal, and then this coalition can now step in to help Iran clean the waterway from mines, and also help protect vessels that will be going through back and forth this strait. Recently, the United Kingdom has decided to send a destroyer to the Middle East, arguing that this would strengthen confidence among commercial shipping and support mine clearing efforts once hostilities end. So again, they are deciding to send the destroyer to the Middle East at this point, when the hostilities hasn't stopped, when a peace deal hasn't been reached, where negotiations are still going on. So one might say that it's premature for the United Kingdom to send a destroyer to the Middle East. First of all, the war hasn't ended. The United States and Iran are still, they have a ceasefire, no doubt, fragile, no doubt, but again, the war hasn't ended. They haven't really reached an agreement they haven't really agreed on how to end the war. So having the UK send a destroyer at this point, to me, seems somewhat premature. Again, because of this, I think Iran kind of warned Britain and France on Sunday, that's today, that its armed forces would launch a decisive and immediate response to any warship being sent to the Strait of Hormuz at this point. So Iran is saying very clearly, hey, you can do whatever it is you want. You can send your warships if that's what you're deciding to do. But be warned, or we are giving you notice that we will attack your warships as soon as they approach or attempt to get into the strait, which kind of forced the French President Emmanuel Macron to kind of clarify that France had never envisaged a naval deployment in the Strait of Hormuz, but rather a security mission that would be coordinated with Iran. So I think Emmanuel Macron seemed to have walked that decision back, saying that, well, France is not intending to send a naval deployment to the Strait, but rather just sending a security mission that would help Iran open the strait. So Emmanuel Macron is saying, hey, we're not coming there to fight. We would not be coming there for any other reason other than to kind of support you, Iran, clear the strait once you and the United States have arrived at a peace deal, or have arrived at a conclusion to the fighting, which I think it's important that Emmanuel Macron is stepping this back. Again, you don't want to confront Iran at this point. Iran is at a point where they will not take things like this lying down. Sending warships to the Gulf or around the Strait is obviously a threat to the security, the sovereignty and security of Iran. So of course they would forcefully defend themselves, attack any naval vessels if they found them to be threatening in any way. And it wouldn't matter if it's vessels from the United States or if it's vessels from France or the United Kingdom. So Iran is just putting France and the United Kingdom on notice. Say, hey, if you show up, I will not only be dealing with the United States, but I will have to turn around and deal with you as well. So with respect to the coalition, that is what is kind of happening. They have this structure in place, but again, it's not clear when they would start working. It's not really clear how they would get involved. I know we also know of the coalition of the willing when it comes to Ukraine, where France and the United Kingdom and a bunch of other states have formed a coalition saying that they would have boots on the ground in Ukraine once Ukraine and Russia have arrived a long-term ceasefire, or where once there is a conclusion to the war. Again, these steps that you might find necessary and unnecessary depending on who you talk to. I would say unnecessary first of all, because the war is still raging on and there is no end. There's no end in sight. So trying to build a coalition to clear a waterway that is still in dispute at this point, to me, is unreasonable, on in my opinion. So again, well, you might also argue that it's fine to have a structure in place so that once this war ends, there would be no waste of time trying to build a coalition or structure. The structure would already be in place, and they would already have the equipment and the logistics and the manpower to effect the mission at hand, which would be to clear the Strait of Hormuz of mines and any unexploded ordnance, and also to help guide the more than 2,000 ships that have been trapped in the Strait of Hormuz since February the 28th. If you have been following the situation in the Gulf, particularly in the Strait of Hormuz, the situation between Iran and the United States, you would know that there has been a ceasefire in place that has lasted for about 32 days, and within this time, the United States and Iran have been negotiating the end to this war. They have, of course, used Pakistan, who has been serving as a mediator. Pakistan, of course, a good friend of Iran. Again, they share a long border and have some sort of a good relationship. And Pakistan too also has a good standing with the United States. So makes Pakistan some sort of a trusted mediator, trusted by both Iran as well as the United States. So these two countries have been passing their proposals back and forth through the mediator Pakistan. So early last week, Washington sent Tehran a 14-point proposal, and some of the terms were: Iran would have to agree not to develop nuclear weapons. They would have to stop all uranium enrichment for at least 12 years. They would have to hand over an estimated 440 kilograms stock of uranium enriched up to 60%. And in return, so those are some sort of the conditions of Iraq of a resolution of this dispute. And if you notice, priority is given to Iran's nuclear program. It doesn't make mention of the ballistics missile program, which I'm assuming the United States is abandoning that request that Iran ceases to produce ballistic missiles or limit the range of its ballistic missile. I get the feeling that that is not a primary issue of this negotiation. So it's more Iran's nuclear program, stop enrichment for 12 years, and then also to repatriate the enriched uranium, the 440 kilograms of enriched uranium that Iran has in its possession. And in return, the United States is willing to gradually lift sanctions, release billions of dollars in frozen Iranian assets, as well as hold its naval blockade on Iran. So that is what the United States is willing to do, or to give up, or to compromise on, as a motivation for Iran to, to give up its enrichment, and also a way to end the war. I also kind of want to point out here that there's no detail as to how this sanction lifting would go. It talks about a gradual lifting of sanctions. But again, knowing America under Donald Trump, or generally speaking, it would be hard for Iran to trust a gradual lifting of sanctions. What does gradual lifting means? What does it mean to lift the sanctions gradually? Would Iran believe that the United States would lift the sanctions if Iran gives up every request that the United States has made? Would the United States not at one point say, we are not willing to leave the sanctions, or would they pick and choose what sanctions would be lifted? Secondly, are you going to release the billions of dollars of frozen assets right away? Or are you also going to try and gradually release that Iranian frozen assets? Again, these are questions that I think the Iranians needed to take into consideration before providing a response. So today, on May 10th, Iran did provide a response to the 10-point plan. Again, this Iran's response to the United States proposal was sent to the United States via the mediator Pakistan. Tehran response places a ceasefire in Lebanon and the lifting of restrictions on Iranian oil at the center of any future understanding with Washington. So Iran is prioritizing ceasefire, the situation in Lebanon. So that is important to Iran, as well as lifting the restrictions on Iranian oil export. So Iran is wanting to be able to freely sell its oil to who they want and not have any restrictions or any sanctions on Iranian oil. So that is something that's important to the Iranian people. The proposal also reportedly includes demand for the removal of American sanctions, which I just mentioned, the unfreezing of Iranian assets held abroad, and discussion related to Iranians' influence and navigation arrangement in the Strait of Hormuz. So it's not just we want all sanctions lifted. It's not just, we want our assets returned to us. It's also, hey, we need to have a conversation about how Iran, would manage the Strait of Hormuz. That is what Iran is talking about. Iran wants to have influence and some sort of control on how the Strait of Hormuz is managed and used. Iran also did talk about how they intend to deal with the nuclear program, their nuclear issue, which is, I would say, the bone of contention between Iran and the United States. This is how Iran looks at it. Iran proposed to dilute its enriched uranium stockpile and to transfer part of it to a third country that is not the United States. So Iran is willing to say, hey, we would dilute the enrichment stockpile, we would dilute it, and then we can transfer some of that stockpile to a third country, maybe China, maybe Russia. I think those would be the two primary parties for that, and of course not the United States. Iran will not pass on any amount of the enriched uranium to the United States. It is something that Iran probably will not be willing to do, because it just shows very clearly that the United States has an upper hand. Iran might be willing to do away with its enriched uranium, but it would prefer to pass that on to, I would say, their friends, China or Russia. It is important to note, even at this point, that the United States cannot clearly say where this enriched uranium is. They claim that it is, they destroyed, but again, they cannot say whether Iran had moved it to a new location. They cannot say where it is. They can't even find it, even if they wanted to, right? So that too is a sticking point for both the United States and Iran. Iran also demands that the enriched uranium be returned to its possession if the talks fail, or if the United States withdraw from the agreement at a later date. Remember earlier I did mention that it would be hard for Iran to trust the United States when it comes to agreements and when it comes to keeping their words. The United States has shown repeatedly that they are willing and able to breach agreements with other states. Again, Russia can testify to this. So the United States, so Iran is kind of wary. If we agree to releasing our uranium stockpile to a third party, what if at some point you decide that, hey, you are going to withdraw from the agreement that we had? What if the talks does not succeed? Do we leave enriched uranium with a third party, or do we repatriate that? Do we bring that back to Iran? So I think Iran too wants to have a condition saying, hey, and this would some sort of be the glue that kind of holds or binds the United States to whatever agreement that they might have with Iran, or push them to go through this negotiation process, or without some sort of ending the negotiations prematurely. So Iran is using this as leverage. Hey, we might decide to pass this stockpile to a third party, China or Russia. However, if for whatever reason these talks fail because of you guys, or if for any reason the United States decides to withdraw from whatever agreements we arrive at, we would have the right to bring back the uranium into Iran, and maybe, of course, maybe continue with enrichment, or just have that in our possession. Iran agreed to hold uranium enrichment, so we will not. Iran is saying we will not enrich uranium for a period shorter than 20 years, but they will not dismantle their nuclear facilities. So Iran is saying, fine, we might be willing to hold, so put a stop on uranium enrichment, which is something that they had done before under the JCPOA with President Obama. Iran had halted any all forms of enrichment until the JCPOA was done away with by Trump. Again, when Iran is saying, if you choose to withdraw from an agreement, they are a victim of that. The JCPOA was an agreement between Iran and the United States under President Obama. And when Donald Trump came into office, what did he do? We are leaving. We are withdrawing from the agreement. So Iran is speaking out of experience. So they are saying, well, we would, halt uranium enrichment, but for a period shorter than 20 years. And again, we are not dismantling our nuclear facilities. So they would have those facilities in place, no dismantling them, but however, they will not be enriching uranium at all. According to the proposed plan, the first stage of the negotiation will focus on ending hostilities. So Iran has broken this down into different phases. First phase, we negotiate the end of hostilities. No more attacking Iran. We want guarantees. You can't just wake up and attack us. We have to negotiate the end to the hostility, put an end to the war first, and then as well as ensuring maritime security. So we are going to negotiate an end to the hostilities, and then we are going to negotiate maritime security. So again, talk about Iran's control of the Strait of Hormuz, and then they can talk about their nuclear program. So that is how Iran seems to be breaking down their proposal. We talk about ending hostilities first, and then we talk about Iran's role in the Strait of Hormuz, and then we can talk about our nuclear program, and maybe Iran might be willing to, to make further compromises. we have heard from Trump, and Trump is saying that the Iranian response is totally unacceptable. And I would say that the key issues here are the nuclear issue, and Iran's involvement of Hezbollah and Lebanon in the agreement. I think, in my opinion, that too is a difficult arrangement to have, because Hezbollah or Lebanon is a different country, Hezbollah has its own agenda. Iran seem to be negotiating on their behalf and on behalf of Hezbollah, which makes things a little bit more complicated. And again, it's not just Iran that's doing this. We have Trump negotiating for the United States and for Israel, because again, these negotiations, Israel is not directly involved in this negotiation, just like Lebanon and Hezbollah is not directly involved. So Iran is not only looking out for Iran is looking out for Iran and Hezbollah, just like the United States isn't only looking out for the United States is looking out for United States and Israel. And in my opinion, this is going to make this negotiation a lot complicated, because Israel and the United States have different views on Iran. They have they have different goals, and they have different vision of what Iran should look like at the end of this war. While the United States might be willing to have Iran remain a viable, independent, sovereign state, with maybe leaders that are a little bit more favorable to the United States, or with leaders who are willing to do a deal and reach an agreement with Donald Trump, Israel probably does not want that. Israel probably want an Iran that is weak, Iran that is decapitated, Iran that is segmented or fragmented into small little groups, an Iran that is disunited. I think that is the Iran that Israel would like. And also, difficulty here with Hezbollah. Israel, while the USA might be willing to accept Iran to continue to support its proxies in Lebanon and in Gaza, Israel clearly doesn't want that. Israel wants Hezbollah disarmed and disbanded from Lebanon, which is something that Iran will not accept. Iran continues to support Hezbollah financially, morally, even diplomatically, right? While Israel would want to have them gone. Same thing with Hamas in Gaza. Iran would continue to support Hamas, I'm sure, just as Iran is going to continue to support the Houthis in Yemen, right? Something that Israel would obviously not want to see happen. So in my opinion, it would be difficult for Iran and the United States to reach an agreement if Iran has to consider its proxies, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, as well as Hamas in Gaza, while at the same time Trump also has to consider Israel while making this negotiation. So we are still a very long way from any kind of peace agreement between Iran and the United States. If you've seen Trump's Truth Social post this last couple of hours, he is beginning to be irritated by Iran, and it is likely that he might begin to escalate. So the war is not ended. Who knows what tomorrow holds? We will see what decisions Trump makes on Monday morning, so Monday, May 11th, and that will determine the direction of the war. But Iran has provided the United States with a reply to the proposal they received last week. Trump had given them a week to provide a response, so just good timing for today. So we would see. We already know Trump is not happy with the response. He says it is totally unacceptable, in caps. So we shall see what decision Trump makes tomorrow, and that would obviously tell us where this war is going to, and how much time before a peace deal can be arrived at. Again, Trump today, he might be irritated and angry with the Iranians, and tomorrow he might change his tone and be more tree and be more understanding of the situation. So we are waiting to see what happens, and we will come back again in the next couple of days to give you an update of what is happening. Thank you very much for watching the Idle Park Talk Show. If you enjoyed this conversation, well, if you enjoyed this this presentation, if you want to call it that, please share this with your friends, family, whoever you believe might be interested in the information that we've just shared. Thank you very much. We'll talk again soon. Bye.